Hello, thank you for joining the Lazaridis School with our Beyond the Degree series. My name is Graham McCormick, and I'm the Corporate Engagement Officer for the Lazaridis School of Business and Economics at Wilfrid Laurier University, and a BBA alumnus from 2011. Today, we're joined by Scott Cameron, Policy Analyst at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and an alumnus from the Bachelors of Arts in Economics program, class of 2007. Scott was an economic advisor for the Parliamentary Budget Officer in Ottawa for 6 years. Prior to his time in Ottawa, Scott worked in budget forecasting and tax policy for HM Treasury in the UK, the Ontario Ministry of Finance, oversaw a public finance reform program in Cambodia, and was an economic consultant in Greece. Scott, thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here. Thank you, Graham.
To get things going, you did your bachelor's degree in economics at the Lazaridis School. Why did you choose Laurier, and what drew you to the economics program?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, economics wasn't really on my radar in high school. I grew up in the country outside of a small town, and I wanted to be a big shot businessman in Toronto. So I applied to all of the kind of classic Canadian business schools, including, of course, Laurier. But the business programs are very competitive, especially for first years, and sometimes they don't even take first years. So I was offered general arts degrees, and with the suggestion that I could transfer in later years to the business programs. But Laurier offered me this program called economics. So after researching it further, I thought, that might be the secret to separating myself from the crowd. Can demonstrate my technical chops, math and modeling skills, and then eventually do a future career in business. But then I learned that economics is much more than just models and spreadsheets. It's the study of human well-being, lifting living standards, improving the way that our society works through better public policy. At some point, I lost my ambition to make a ton of money on Bay Street, and I wanted a career working for government and in public policy. So I really enjoyed a lot of the classes I took and Laurier's courses on monetary policy, tax economics. Some of the professors I had been practitioners in Ottawa, and they told all kinds of fascinating stories about being at the center of big decisions in government. And I wanted to make that my career.
It's so interesting because your story, is similar to a lot of students. A lot of students, who come into first year, who get an offer for the economics program, who maybe were looking at a different program, with the idea that maybe they'll switch in later years. But the economics program is extremely versatile, and it has a lot of different outcomes that aren't just necessarily, economics. That analytical background is really good for accounting as well. So it's interesting, how you kind of, you took that chance and how it's worked out for you thus far. Now, following your bachelor's degree, you completed your master's in economics at the University of Edinburgh. How do you think your time at the Lazaridis School prepared you for your graduate studies?
Yeah, beginning right with the application, I had really good relationships with the professors at Laurier who were thrilled to write me references for the program. And students at big schools don't always have that connection with faculty. The course director at the grad school in Edinburgh, he had no concerns about Canadians, he said when I was interviewing. He said, I have no concerns about Canadians, their background. Canada has a solid math foundation in their economics undergrads. I didn't know that about Canadians, but it certainly was the case at Laurier. I struggled getting through some of that math foundation at Laurier. I repeated calculus more times than I care to admit. But in the end, I was well ahead of my peers in grad school who came from less technical schools, some of the policy schools in Europe. And it really gave me that good technical solid foundation, which as you mentioned in the lead-in, is just so versatile and you can take anywhere. There's such a high demand. And it's not even like, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's just, calculating growth rates. Not many people can do that when it comes down to it. And it's always in demand. But it was really that, again, it was really getting to know professors on a personal level and understanding the academic industry, being comfortable approaching and working with profs. At Laurier, you can be a research assistant as an undergrad, which is just unheard of in a lot of places. And then classmates from larger research institutions, or research universities rather, had never spoken personally with a lecturer before, were intimidated, and it can be really cold out there at bigger schools. Laurier has that personal mentorship, and without it, I probably would have flunked out in third year. I would have never, certainly never, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's really that relationship with professors that you get at a teaching school.
Well, you raise that point, and then I think about the different opportunities students have outside of the classroom to interact with professors, being it with, on different case teams or with regards to research projects. And that is a huge differentiator. Now, you mentioned something else there, the reputation Canadians have, outside of Canada. And you started your career at HM Treasury, the UK government's economic and finance ministry in London, as an assistant economist. What was that experience like for you as a young economist, kind of wet behind the ears?
Yeah, I was just so fortunate to pass the UK civil service entrance exams as I was graduating and get that opportunity. It was surreal, climbing the stairs out of the Whitehall tube station, going to a corner office overlooking Parliament Square and the Palace of Westminster. It gave me goosebumps. That's cheesy, but it did. And I was there for 3 years, and I've been chasing that high ever since the rest of my career. Like, it was really, really something. But they treated me with dignity and respect from day one, even though I, was very young and had no experience. They almost gave me too much responsibility. I was put in charge of very important budget forecasting tasks and policy files, dealing with stakeholders, lobby groups, building policy, developing policy, and then pulling the all-nighters to put it all together and launch budgets, which was just so rewarding. It was hard work, but it was really rewarding. And I think that's the dirty secret of a lot of organizations, public and private, that the most junior people are doing most of the work. But I was just blown away by what was put in my hands right, the first day I started. But it was just very, very cool to go from drinking beer in university to deciding how to implement a policy change in the duty rate on beer, and then forecasting the consumption change that we would expect by raising the tax rate by 10p, or the duty rate, and then calculating the revenue changes, and with the price elasticity of demand, the change, like really one-to-one mapping of stuff I learned in undergrad and grad school. And I don't think many people can say that they really applied the theory that they learned in school to their job. And I did it every day. It was very cool, and I still do it every day. It's been fantastic.
It sounds like a really interesting and exciting, foundation for your career. Now, you followed up that time abroad with a stint in Ottawa in the office of the Parliamentary Budget Officer, where you provided independent analysis on the state of the nation's finances. How did you find the transition from being a part of the team that pulls together the budget to the one responsible for ensuring the government estimates are correct and sound?
Well, first of all, it was a lot more fun. So when you're a public servant, you have a lot to say about different government decisions that are being made, but of course you can't. So being a watchdog on the outside, it gives you an outlet to air your past grievances, more delicately than that. But it's a lot of fun, and there's this real kind of spirit of just doing good in the world, holding governments to account. But with that comes a lot of personal accountability in quite an extreme way at some times. So a report will go out with your name on it, and you will see op-eds come out that are criticizing the reports, criticizing the recommendations, the results, the findings, criticizing you. And you'll sit in front of a parliamentary committee, and opposition members will try to score points with the results of your report and get you to say something and slip up and embarrass the government. You really need to make sure that the analysis stands up to that kind of scrutiny, and it's a whole different level than you'd get doing background briefers in the public service. But you want to be able to say to these people that, if you have a problem with the report, point to the mistakes and we can discuss them. And as long as you, really build up the credibility of that research that underlies the report, then they kind of, they're forced to be silent. But that gave me an attention to detail that is, I'm not sure if that's healthy or not, but that was, it's a really, being in the public eye is terrific. And it was great to build kind of an independent name for myself. It's just a whole different level of headlines, and you don't want to say that that's kind of why you're in it, but it's very rewarding to see your work come out. And when you go to the convenience store and look in the stack of newspapers and, hey, there's my report, it's fantastic. But you've got to, of course, I think it's good to have both sides, experience on both sides, so that you still have to, through all of that, be fair to your former colleagues, fair to the government. Everyone is really there with good intentions, doing the best they can to improve lives of Canadians and according to the perspectives that they come from and their beliefs. So it's good having both sides. Not everybody has both the central government and then the outside watchdog experience, but recognizing that everybody at the end of the day are pretty good people, and working together to find solutions is better than being at odds or fighting all the time. But it's terrific.
It sounded like it was an interesting time for you. Now, most recently, you moved to Paris and have joined the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, where you coordinate an international network of independent financial institutions that establishes and shares best practices. What do you think the biggest difference between this role is to the ones you've held previously?
It's certainly less quantitative work. There's no modeling going on right now in my life, really, but let me see. It's a lot more emails and a lot more respect for the people whose jobs are administration functions, because it is tough work. Let me see. It's not about numbers anymore. It's about relationships, maintaining networks and expert practitioners rather than being the practitioner yourself. Of course, I am still brought in on topics where I can apply my background, but it is really a facilitating role rather than doing the nitty gritty. That's what makes it interesting and what makes it difficult. You're trying to draft a best practices note on long run fiscal sustainability modeling, and there are as many practices as there are countries. So it's learning to appreciate and navigate all of those differences. It's learning humility. You can have 15 years experience drafting budgets in Canada, and that means nothing to different countries. Like, everybody is so different. There's so much variation in best practices across countries, and that's a challenge. It's a challenge, but I'm growing into the role, and we'll see. It's been a refreshing change to bring more new ideas into my life and the way I think about budgeting.
Well, and I can only imagine your credibility in your last couple of roles really helps to have you kind of stand out, and sitting across from some of those stakeholders saying I've done that before. I know what this is like. I know what you're going through. So
yeah,
I'm looking at the clock, and I'm noticing we're almost out of time for today. And I'd like to ask you one last question. What advice would you have for any students thinking about a career in the public sector?
Well, let's see. You should find a policy area that you're interested in, and do the background reading and reach out to government officials, government experts. The email addresses of public servants are on the internet. It's always really, really nice to get an email from somebody who has sincere questions, a sincere interest in what we're working on. And we keep them in mind, when positions come come up. We've had a few young people just have reached out to me with terrific questions about reports I've written or research I've put out. And I'm just like, wow, that's very great. And you can bet that I kind of keep them in mind the next time we're looking to fill a spot. But find a good community who's interested in the same policies that you are, and don't shy away from social media. Put yourself out there, attend conferences. Things have changed. Public servants don't hide themselves away anymore. It's a slow change, but it's changing. Of course, you have to try to stay politically neutral and stick to the weeds of policy and navigate that situation, use your judgment. But no, get yourself out there. If you do decide to and find I think it's truly the best career in the world. It's fantastic. It's a bottomless outlet for intellectual curiosity. You can grapple with the same policy questions and debates your whole life, and your views evolve along with you. And anything you're interested in, there's a role in the public service. If you like spaceships, then there's a the Canada Space Agency, and they're always looking for policy analysts and economists. That's the real secret, is a little bit of technical experience, as I said below, or as I said before, being able to calculate growth rates. It's such a basic skill, but a lot of people are very afraid of using spreadsheets. And if you get comfortable with just manipulating numbers in a spreadsheet, it opens a world of opportunity in the public sector. Soft skills are ultimately the most important, but really it is the spreadsheets that get you recognized. Maybe shouldn't be that way, but it is. Yeah, as I said, it's just the best part is the immediate rewards. You read about your projects in the news as you complete them. You watch the outcomes ripple through society and hopefully improve lives in real ways. And nothing can beat that feeling.
Scott, thank you for sharing your insights and experience today. I know they'll be of great value to everyone in the Lazaridis School and Laurier community. Thank you again for watching Beyond the Degree, featuring Scott Cameron, Policy Analyst at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and a graduate of the Lazaridis School.
Thank you so much, man.